My name is Paula Fiscal, and welcome to the show. For today, we are going to continue our spiritual series, and we have invited a guest by the name of Rosalie. Rosalie has been in San Francisco for over 51 years. She has a couple of fine stories to tell us, one about her mother, and she's going to tell us about how she started in San Francisco. Rosalie, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you so much
Paula.
for joining us.
I'm glad to be here. This is going to be fun.
So I'm going to ask you a few questions, and then you can go ahead and tell your story. And since today is Mother's Day, I'd like to start out with the Mother's Day story, if that's okay with you. So can you tell us about your mother first?
Well, my mother was a widow with 7 children, the oldest being 11. And so it was kind of hard for her, but she was a very religious person, and so she, with her faith, she was able to achieve what she wanted to achieve. She prayed a lot. She taught us how to pray, and we were a very close family. So she decided that, after raising all her family, she did a wonderful job, 2 doctorates in the family. Everyone was college educated, and we came from a poor family, but because she had so many children and she was such a hard worker that we all went to Catholic school, and in those days they had a little more compassion, and so they didn't charge us for our schooling. We all got educated, the 7 of us, and 2 doctorates in the family. And after all the years that we were going to school and everything, and she was always in her mind, because she had been a nun in the 20s, and she had a nervous breakdown, and they made her leave. And so in her mind, she always was very, very religious, but that's what helped her. And that's what helped us. She taught us how to pray and how to have faith and believe in ourselves. And so at the age of 90, she met a friend, and she had an opportunity to help this friend start an order. It's called Trinitarians of Mary. And so she became a nun after all those years. At the age of 90, she became a nun.
At the age of 90, that is a very good Happy Mother's Day story. And so we want to thank Rosalie for being here with us again, because Rosalie's really here to share with us some of the tales of the rich and famous, because some of her customers have been rich and famous, such as Etta James, Little Richard, and she's going to tell us some more about some of the other rich and famous. So how did you get started first in San Francisco?
Well, I was raised in Stockton, and it was a small town then. And I knew that if I wanted to make money, I had to go where the money was. So I decided to go to come to San Francisco from Stockton. And it was funny because my mom didn't want me to leave for 4 months. She hid my license from me. But as soon as I found out, I came, and I got a job in North Beach. And it was a great year. I got here in 1959 in North Beach, and it was just when the Topless and all the clubs were starting on Broadway. And so I was an excellent hairdresser. I went to work at Parkview Beauty Salon, which was on Union and Powell, and within 2 years I knew that I wanted to open my own salon, because my business was growing in leaps and bounds. And the reason for that was one of my customers came in. She had been to the Academy Awards in Hollywood, and she had her first beehive done. And so she came and asked me if I could do a beehive on her. I said, I've never done one before. So she took me step by step, and I did my first beehive, and it was so much fun. And I was so more advanced than the other hairdressers in the salon, so my business just grew in leaps and bounds, and I knew I was ready to open my own store.
And I understand that you also have done wigs for Beach Blanket Babylon And can you tell us a little bit more about some of the other movie stars that you've done wigs for?
Well, because I got into the wig business because the location that I was, it was on Broadway, and before I knew it, there was a lot of people working on Broadway in the early 60s. So I got into the wig business, and I met a lot of famous people. For instance, Etta James was working up the street. My salon was in North Beach that I opened. Imagine, I only paid $75 a month rent in this salon on Broadway in Powell. But the first 3 days that I opened in business, I made almost $600, and I knew that I was on my way because I had learned how to back comb and how to do big hair, and that was the rage of the season now.
And you also have a story about the blue wig story, the color wigs. In other words, you were a trendsetter even at that time when people asked you to put color into the wigs, and the manufacturers hadn't caught on yet.
Well, in the early 60s, they didn't make colored wigs. And I had an opportunity to, in my shop, I had a nice variety of wigs and colors, and this guy came by from the Stardust Hotel in Las Vegas, and he was looking for somebody to do the show Enter the Night, actually refreshing the show because it had been running for a while, but their wigs were in a disastrous state. And he came by and he asked me if I could come to Las Vegas and see if I could help him with his show. So I went to the Stardust in Las Vegas, and I met so many different people, and I began to style wigs for them, and they wanted a scene where it was all colored wigs. Well, they didn't make colored wigs yet at that time, so we had to dye our own wigs with Rit color dye, and we started styling and doing all these great things for Enter the Night, and it was the start of all the fun stuff that I was getting ready to do.
And so we want to hear some of the secrets and the stories. Maybe you can share with us about it's Anita ODay, the first white jazz singer.
And Anita ODay, she came to my salon on Broadway Street. It was on Powell and Broadway. And she came to my salon, and she was in the city performing, and I did a hairdo on her, and we became very good friends. And so then every time she would come to town to perform, I would lend her my car because we became good friends. She always told me that I could go to Hollywood and use her Rolls Royce, but I never got there. Anyway, so she was just one of the stars that...
Well, I want to hear the story about Little Richard.
The what?
Little Richard.
Oh,
I want
Little
to hear
Richard.
the Little Richard story.
Well, Little Richard was playing on Broadway at that time, and like I say, my business was a small shop, and I was outgrowing it, and I thought, I need to get in a bigger salon. So I didn't have much money, but I was very gutsy, and I took over this big Odello shoe store that had gone out of business, and we remodeled it, and it was absolutely a wonderful, gorgeous salon, which eventually I had 15 hairdressers working in there. But because we were just a half a block from Broadway, all the show people start coming to me to do. It was Etta James would bring in her wigs to the salon. Little Richard would bring in his wigs to the salon. And so we started doing all these great hairdos for these people because we were like so far advanced as far as our styling and stuff than anybody else in North Beach.
Well, I also saw in your archives on the Yelp page that you did some work for Howard Hesseman.
Howard Hesseman was, he came in and they asked me to do a movie for Howard Hesseman. And so It was called Boys' Night Out, and I think Will Wheaton was in that movie also. And so I brought some pictures, but I don't know if we could show them. But anyway, we did a fun show, and it was filmed, and we did all the wigs and the hair for them, Will Wheaton and Howard Hessman.
And how about the real show, that series that was on
The
television?
Real World?
The Real World. There we go,
Okay.
The Real World.
Well, I was already in my big store on Stockton and Broadway, and there was just, because there was nobody that was in competition to us at that time, and everybody started knowing that we were the only salon that could do big styling, and we started doing different entertainers. Little Richard came in with his wigs. Of course, he wore wigs, and we did his hair for him. Very nice guy. Little Richard, Etta James, so many of them that were playing on Broadway at that time.
And you also do quite a bit of donations and charitable work. I understand you moved into a new location and you recently donated over $4,000 worth of clothing to one of our charity organizations. Which one was that?
Marguerite Rubel was a famous clothing designer, and she was getting sick, and I met her through Paula here, and she took a liking to me, and she was getting very ill, and she told her brother if anything should happen to her that I could have all her clothing. So I inherited approximately 5,000 to 6,000 pieces of clothing that she designed for Neiman Marcus, Joseph Magnon's, I. Magnon's, all the big stores. And so I ended up with this huge inventory. So I donated 4,500 pieces of clothing that were Marguerite Rubel's clothing to Saint
Vincent de Paul or
Saint
Anthony's?
St. Anthony's. Isn't it that St. Anthony's
Right.
where they have the new building?
Right.
Yeah, St. Anthony's. And so I was, I sold quite a few pieces, and I didn't have the room to put them in the new store. And so I figured at least somebody would get some good out of them. And so that's 4,500 pieces of clothing, and I was happy to donate it to a good cause.
That's great. And let's talk a little bit also about how you have been doing, for example, Juanita Moore's hair for many, many years. You've done a lot of the famous Empress of the Beaux-Arts Ball. In other words, you have a lot of queens in your shop that attribute their hairstyles to you.
Well, because number one, I was very blessed that I was able to, do hair a little bit sooner than most hairstylists because I had this artistic gift, and I was able to style hair and make these elegant hairdos. And so I built up a great clientele of customers. And Juanita Moore, when she first came to San Francisco, that was in 1990, that's when I met her, and we became friends, and she was a very dedicated customer, and which she still is, and she's brought me a lot of business, and she's done a lot of charity work herself, and so I've still to this day, after 23 years, we're still doing Juanita's hair, and she's brought me a huge amount of business, and we've become very good friends at the same time.
And yet, though, you also do regular people's hair, and you have some entertainers that come in. Mary Wilson.
Mary
Let's
Wilson
talk about
from
Mary
the
Wilson.
Supremes. She came into the store one evening, and I didn't even know it was Mary Wilson. She just said, "My name is Mary," and so she was going to be in a wedding. One of her girlfriends, there was going to be 25 bridesmaids, and one of her girlfriends was had invited her as one of the bridesmaids. And she says, I know you have some wonderful things here. So we found her a couple of wigs, and we found her some outfits. And she became very good friends with me, Mary Wilson. So every time she would come to town, she'd look me up. She just was here not too long ago at the plush room. And so she was happy to see me, but we've always remained very good friends. Mary Wilson is a great person.
And you've also worked with a lot of people that are in the LGBT industry for fashion shows. I recall you did a fashion show with the Asian community, and I believe you have a diverse background yourself, and you work with a lot of our different communities, and you donate clothing or hair, and have done a lot of work like that here. Is there any way that somebody can reach you if they would like to contact you for a fashion show or to do hair?
Oh, we've done so many fashion shows. We did a great show at Bimbo's, and I brought Kenny Kerr from Boylesque because I got to do a big job in Las Vegas at the Stardust. And they just found me by my windows in North Beach, and they hired me to do Enter the Night show. And because Kenny Kerr from the Boylesque was very good friends with the people that were running the Stardust, I've got to be very good friends with Kenny, and I brought him to Bimbo's, and they did a fundraiser for me at Bimbo's. And so that's how I met Kenny Kerr, and many of the stars from the Stardust came to perform for me, and it was a fundraiser, so they just charged me their airfare to come here, and they did a fabulous show at Bimbo's.
And how about the show with the RuPaul show? Also, some of her entertainers came into your shop?
Yes. Well, you know, because I'm not that I'm bragging, but I've been kind of ahead of the industry as far as styling and doing it. Nobody could do what we were doing on Broadway with all the fancy big hair, because I learned from that one girl that went to the Academy Awards. And so we were very popular, and so we got an opportunity to meet a lot of important actors and actresses that would come in the store, and it was amazing to be able to work with all these people.
And you also got an award from the Board of Supervisors, a Certificate of Honor one year?
Yes, from Peskin. He gave us a reward because he thought that, we were doing an outstanding job with the community.
When Aaron Peskin was the president of the board, yes.
Yes, he was at that time.
Yes.
He was the president. He gave me a nice plaque, which I put up in my salon. I'm very proud of it. And so anyway, the different shows that I've done, I did many fashion shows. We did shows at the Hilton. We did shows at all over the city here. And the way I got into that is I knew if I was going to do hair and do wigs, that I had to be where the customers wanted wigs and hair. So we started with in the gay community. We start going to different shows, and they start performing for me. We had many shows. Like I say, we did a big show at Bimbo's. We did it at the Plush Room. We did them, and so it was like an awakening, because it was fun with the wigs and doing meeting all these stars and things.
And how about Oliver Stone over here in the picture?
Oh, Oliver Stone, I met him because Tiana did a movie. Tiana did a movie, and it was about Vietnam. And so he was a producer with that, and Tiana was my friend. And so I got to do her. She became very good friends with me, and I met Oliver Stone, and Tiana was she's still in Hollywood doing movies, and it was amazing that I was able to meet all these different people. We did several shows. Loochin and Stephen Cousins. I have pictures where they were champions that year in the and so they came to my shop, and we put wigs on them, and we dressed them up, and they went around town showing all my wigs off and my clothing.
And how about the Easter parade on Union Street?
Oh, there's so many stories.
Now, those were some big, high, green wigs that you prepared for that.
Yes, because, like I say, we were ahead of the industry as far as, making big wigs or making big hairdos. And so just about that time that I got on Broadway just opened up, and all the topless were coming in the store, and we had several of the dancers, and it was a fabulous store. And then the nuns, my children were going to St. Bridget's School, and the nuns, they took off their habits, so I invited the nuns to come to the store to do their hair for free. So it was a great thing, because you see one of the nuns sitting under the dryer, and maybe a transvestite sitting next to him under a dryer. There was like 27 dryers in there, so there was a lot of fun people in there. And then maybe you would see another movie star or some of the performers from Broadway. And so it was actually a wonderful, wonderful living to be able to meet all these wonderful people.
And how about more recently you did some work with production in the East Bay called Hairspray?
Oh yeah, we did Hairspray. In fact, we did Hairspray, and it's running right now in Oakland. And so they wanted big wigs, and we've done so many wigs for different shows and stuff.
And how about Hedwig?
Hedwig is a show that opened up, and they wanted somebody to help them with all their theatrical hairdos, and they found me, and so they are still running my wigs in their show. They just moved to North Beach, and they're still running the wigs in my show, and in their show, I'm sorry. And so it's like I was very blessed that I was able to be kind of ahead of the industry with all these big fun hairdos. And like I say, a lot of stars came in, a lot of performers, and I'm still going at it. I've been at it 58 years, and I just signed a new lease they think I'm crazy, but it's part of my life. I would rather be doing hair and having fun and what I'm doing than anything else. Why should I retire? And so they asked me the other day, "Oh, when are you going to retire?" I said, "Excuse me, I'm never going to retire. This is too much fun."
That's right. If anybody asks us about retirement, we just ignore them, right? We
Yes.
don't say anything. So if you would like to contact Rosalie, the best way to do this is at gypsyrosalies@gmail.com. She also has many, many reviews on the Yelp pages, or you can call her at 415-771-8814 for her new location. So are there any tips that you want to share with the audience about getting into your industry?
Well, I was just really lucky that I picked something. My mom wanted me to go to college, and I didn't want to go to college because I was very creative, and I knew that I went to beauty school, and it was amazing because they absolutely loved me in this school because I was so ahead of everybody else as far as styling. And so when I finished school, like I said, I wanted to go where the money was, and it was in San Francisco, and I got a job in North Beach, worked there a few years, and then went on my own, and I've been on my own for over 50 years. I would say, I'm not going to say exact, well, I'll tell you. 55 years I've been on my own, so I've been at this for 58 years and still having fun. I can't stop playing.
That's wonderful. It's good to hear that there's no age discrimination in your store. You take care of the young, you take care of the old. You also do quite a bit of work with some charities yourself, yes?
Yes.
And so in order to perhaps learn what you do have classes?
Yes, I have classes. We have styling classes. And so I like to break everything down in my class. Usually people only need a 3-hour class, and they go out and they learn, because I break everything down very simple for them. And, everything has a trick. And if you learn the tricks, then that's all you need to know. And I teach the tricks.
So there you have it. In case you have a bit of artistic flair in you that you'd like to expand, you can sign up for one of her classes. And regarding the classes that she does hold, you can contact her at gypsyrosalies@gmail.com. And we want to thank Rosalie for joining us for our spiritual series this month. And we want to wish all the mothers out there a happy Mother's Day.
Thank you.